Between 1920 and 1929, roughly 115 million Americans experienced the wildest decade in modern history, encountering jazz, prohibition, automobiles, and unprecedented freedoms. The Roaring Twenties were electric and revolutionary, but for the average person, daily life was a strange mix of ancient tradition and shocking modernity. Here's what life was really like during America's most transformative decade. Real quick, like or subscribe if you want more of these, and tell me where you are and what time. I saw someone from Tokyo last week saying it was already tomorrow there, still trying to wrap my head around that. Tonight's stop, America in the 1920s. Hold up though, get cozy first. Adjust those pillows, pull up that blanket. Trust me, once we get going, you won't want to move. Your eyes open to a New York tenement apartment, 1921. First thing that hits you is the noise. Voices through paper-thin walls, water pipes clanging, a baby crying somewhere down the hall. You're on a metal-framed bed with a lumpy cotton mattress that smells faintly of mildew and sweat. Unlike your cozy bed now, this one's shared with your brother, who's already up and washing at the small basin balanced on a wooden chair. "Hey, sleepyhead," he says, splashing his face. "Factory whistle's gonna blow in 40 minutes. The room is tiny, maybe 10 feet square, with 2 beds crammed against opposite walls. A single window faces a brick wall across an air shaft so narrow you could touch the next building if you reached out. That window's your primary source of ventilation, which means in summer you choose between privacy or suffocating heat. In winter, like now, icy drafts slip through the loose frame, making the thin blankets almost useless. You know that feeling when your alarm goes off but your bed's so warm you can't bear to leave it? Multiply that by 1,000. It's January in New York and the only heat comes from a coal stove in the main room that your mother's already firing up. You can hear her coughing from the coal dust. The apartment has 4 rooms total. This bedroom you share with your brother, another tiny bedroom where your parents and 2 sisters sleep, the main room that serves as kitchen and living area, and a small water closet with a toilet. That's luxury, actually. Indoor plumbing? Some tenements still have outhouses in the back courtyard, but your toilet's just a toilet. No bathtub, no shower. For that, it's the public bathhouse once a week, maybe. "Ma's making coffee," your brother says, toweling off. "Actual coffee today, not that chicory stuff." Speaking of survival, that's the first thought that hits your brain every morning in 1921. How do we make it through today? The alarm clock beside your bed cost nearly a week's wages. But it's essential. Miss your shift at the garment factory and someone takes your spot before lunch. There's always a hungry line of immigrants waiting for work. I spent way too long researching tenement housing layouts for this. Did you know some didn't even have windows except in the front room? Actual death traps where people lived for decades. Your stomach growls as you swing your legs over the side of the bed. The wooden floor is ice cold against your bare feet. In your modern bed right now, you might have a carpet beside you, warm socks, maybe slippers waiting. Here it's bare boards and the shock of cold that finishes waking you up. Ma traded Mrs. Goldstein some darning for an extra loaf, your brother says, pulling on a patched shirt. So there's actual toast. Food. Always food. The constant calculation of calories versus cost. Your factory job pays $12 a week for 60 hours of work. Rent for this 4-room tenement apartment is $30 a month. Do the math and weep. Every penny goes to a complex equation of survival. You pull on wool socks with holes in the toes, heavy cotton trousers worn thin at the knees, a flannel shirt patched at the elbows, and suspenders that were your father's before his factory accident last year. Getting dressed in the 1920s isn't the casual affair it is now. Everything has purpose. Everything gets used until it disintegrates, then gets repurposed again. Pop's already gone, your brother says, lacing up his boots. Night shift at the dock. That's how families survive in 1921. Tag team working. Father works nights unloading ships, sleeps days. You and your brother work days at the garment factory. Mother takes in laundry, mending, whatever odd jobs come along. Your older sister works at Woolworths. The younger one's still in school, but not for long. At 14, she'll join the workforce soon enough. The landlord's like, $5 or you're out. And you're thinking, $5? That's half my weekly pay, because eviction is a constant threat hanging over every family. No tenant protections, no lease agreements for most, just weekly envelopes of cash and the landlord's mood determining your housing security. You make your way to the main room where your mother stands at the coal stove, stirring a pot of oatmeal. The stove provides the only warmth in the apartment, making this room the heart of your home. The room smells of coal smoke, coffee, and yesterday's cabbage soup. "Sleep okay?" your mother asks, not looking up. Her hands are red and chapped from washing other people's clothes. She's 43 but looks 60. Fine, you lie. The truth is, you were up half the night listening to your father coughing in the next room. That dock dust gets in the lungs. Breakfast in 1921 is serious business. No grabbing a protein bar or coffee shop stop. This meal needs to fuel hours of physical labour. Your mother ladles thick oatmeal into a chipped bowl, adds a sprinkle of sugar, a luxury, and pours coffee into a tin cup. The coffee's stretched with chicory to make it last longer, bitter but hot. You know those fancy artisanal toast places charging $8 for avocado toast? Yeah, no. Your toast is a thick slice of day-old bread, slightly stale, held over the stove grate until it browns, then spread with a scraping of lard. Protein and calories, the currency of survival. Through the window, you can see the street 5 floors below coming alive. A milk wagon rattles past, glass bottles clinking. The milkman's horse leaves steaming deposits on the cobblestones, which kids will dodge on their way to school. A man with a pushcart shouts about hot chestnuts. The newspaper boy's already shouting headlines about prohibition raids. Tony got arrested last night, your sister says, entering from the other bedroom. She's already dressed for work, hair pinned up severely, caught with a flask at Mancini's place. And here we encounter one of the most bizarre experiments in American history, prohibition. January 1920. The government decided alcohol was the root of all evil and banned it completely. Manufacturing, selling, transporting, all illegal. Can you imagine the absolute chaos? Picture the government deciding tomorrow that coffee is illegal, or sugar, or I don't know, cheese, something millions of people use daily. What happens? People don't stop, they just get creative. Tony's an idiot, your brother says, wolfing down oatmeal. Everyone knows Mancini's gets raided on Tuesdays. Because that's how prohibition actually worked. This elaborate dance between cops who needed to show arrests and speakeasies that reopened the next day with a new password. The password this week? I'm thirsty. Real subtle. The speakeasy doorman gives you this look. Password? He growls, and you're standing there like, thirsty? Because even the passwords were an open secret. Everyone knew which barbershops had illegal bars in the back, which pharmacies would sell you medicinal whiskey, which grocery stores had wine grapes labelled "warning, will ferment into wine if left in warm place for 3 weeks." You finish breakfast standing up, too rushed to sit. Through the walls you can hear the Calabrese family's morning argument, the Levinsky baby crying, Mrs. O'Rourke's morning coughing fit. Privacy doesn't exist in tenement life. Everyone knows everyone's business, troubles, joys. Outside, the January air hits like a slap. The street teems with people, women with shopping baskets, men hurrying to work, children darting between adults. The smell is a complex mix of coal smoke, horse manure, garbage waiting for collection, and the enticing scent of bread from the Italian bakery on the corner. Your breath forms clouds in the frigid air as you and your brother join the river of workers flowing toward the factories. Women in headscarves, men in caps, all moving with purpose. This early, the automobiles are few, mostly delivery trucks bringing goods to shops. The wealthy with their private cars won't be out until later. Race you past Scarpelli's, your brother says, and you both break into a jog, dodging pedestrians. Physical fitness wasn't a hobby in 1921, it was built into daily life. No one had gym memberships because life itself was a constant workout. Past the butcher shop with its window display of cuts most modern Americans wouldn't recognize, past the greengrocer where your mother will haggle over bruised vegetables later, past Mrs. Finkelstein who runs the notion shop where your sister buys thread to mend everything endlessly. The garment factory looms ahead, 6 stories of brick with windows that barely open in summer, creating an inferno where you and 500 others work. In winter, like now, those same windows let in drafts that make your fingers so numb you can barely operate the sewing machine. You ever had that moment where your one paycheck from disaster? That was Tuesday for most people. No safety net existed, no unemployment insurance, no workers' compensation, no social security. Your boss basically says, work faster or someone else will, because there's always someone hungrier waiting for your job. Waiting at the factory entrance is Mr. Perkins, the floor manager, checking his pocket watch. 2 minutes to whistle, he says, nodding as you pass. Being late means docked pay or worse. Inside, the factory floor stretches vast and already humming. Rows of sewing machines, pressing stations, cutting tables. The air's thick with fabric dust, steam and the smell of machine oil. Your lungs will feel it by day's end. The workers are a United Nations assembly. Italian, Jewish, Irish, Polish, Greek, first and second generation immigrants building America stitch by stitch. English mixes with a dozen other languages in a constant babble beneath the machine noise. You take your station at the sewing machine as the starting whistle blasts. For the next 12 hours you'll feed fabric through the machine, creating men's shirts sold in fancy department stores for more money than you make in days. Your back will ache, your eyes will strain, your hands will cramp. The woman beside you, Mrs. Levin, nods hello. She's 60 if she's a day, fingers permanently curved from decades at the machine. My Sadie's engaged, she tells you during a brief lull, to a dentist. The pride in her voice tells the whole immigrant story. First generation suffers, so the second can rise. Lunch break comes after 6 hours, 20 minutes to wolf down the sandwich your mother packed. Bread, a slice of bologna, a pickle if you're lucky. Workers sprawl on crates or lean against walls, too tired to even leave the building. I mean, imagine working without any of the protections we take for granted. No breaks required by law, no safety standards, the fire escape doors often locked to prevent theft. After the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire in 1911 killed 146 workers, some improvements came, but not nearly enough. The afternoon drags, fingers flying on autopilot while minds wander. You've made 63 shirt collars so far. Quota is 100 by day's end. Fall short 3 days running and there's someone to take your place. By 4 o'clock, winter darkness already falls. The gas lights flicker on, making precision work even harder. Outside the grimy windows, snow begins to fall, adding another worry. Bad weather means streetcar delays, icy sidewalks, wet feet leading to colds you can't afford. The cop on the corner looks at your flask and goes, "I didn't see nothing," because even they knew prohibition was a joke. The police had an impossible job enforcing a law nobody wanted, leading to the first modern era of widespread corruption. Badge by day, speakeasy customer by night. Quitting whistle finally blasts at 7. Your back screams as you straighten, fingers stiff claws that slowly uncurl. Around you, hundreds of workers sigh collectively, gather belongings, bundle up for the cold journey home. Payday tomorrow, your brother says, as you push through the crowd towards the exit. Those magic words that make it all worthwhile, or at least bearable. Outside, snow falls thicker now, muffling the city sounds. Gas streetlights create halos in the white air. Your feet crunch along the accumulating snow as you join the exodus home. Some lucky workers board streetcars, paying their nickel fare. You and your brother walk to save the money. Wait, let me back up. Your feet. You're wearing boots with thin soles and leaks where the leather's cracked. Each step in the snow sends a shock of cold up your legs. By the time you reach home, your socks will be wet, your toes numb. Modern waterproof boots with thermal insulation, pure fantasy. The streets transform in the evening hours. Shops close, restaurants and social clubs light up. Music drifts from open doors, the new jazz that moral guardians claim is corrupting youth. On the corner, a newsboy shouts, "President Harding's cabinet announced read all about it." And here's something wild. Despite prohibition being barely a year old, you pass 3 speakeasies on your 10-block walk home. You recognize them by the line of cars outside nondescript buildings, the faint sound of jazz, the bouncer eyeing everyone who approaches. One's disguised as a soda shop, another as a bookstore, the third doesn't even pretend. Just a blank door with a sliding peephole. "We should stop at Mancini's," your brother suggests. "One drink. I got paid for that extra work." This is how most workers cope with the crushing routine. A quick drink before home, a moment of escape. But it's different now, shadowed with the thrill and danger of illegality. After Tony? No way, you answer. Murphy's on Thursday, because even in speakeasy culture, you had your routine. Different nights, different places. Spreading your illegal business around was just smart. When you finally climb the 5 flights to your tenement apartment, the smell of cabbage soup greets you. Your mother's stretched yesterday's leftovers, added an onion and potato with thick slices of bread. It'll fill bellies. Your father's at the table already, looking grey with exhaustion after his night shift. Your sisters set out chipped bowls and tin cups. This is dinner in working-class 1921. Simple food, eaten together, the meal planned around overlapping work schedules. "Got a letter from cousin Frank in Chicago," your father says between spoonfuls. Says there's good work in the stockyards, better pay than here. And there it is, the constant calculation. Stay or go, endure known hardships or risk new ones. Mobility wasn't just a luxury in the 1920s. It was a survival strategy. Follow the work, follow the opportunity, keep moving to stay ahead of poverty. After dinner, your family's evening ritual unfolds. Your father repairs a chair leg while your mother mends clothes. Your sister reads aloud from the newspaper, one of the Italian dailies, while your younger sister struggles through homework at the table. No private rooms for homework, no quiet study space. Life happens collectively in the 2 main rooms. Says here they raided 50 speakeasies last night, your sister reads. Confiscated 500 gallons of liquor. Your father snorts. 500? That's what, one night's business? Waste of time? And he's right. Prohibition created the first modern criminal underground, turned ordinary citizens into lawbreakers, corrupted police forces nationwide, all while failing spectacularly at its goal of creating a dry nation. By 9 o'clock, exhaustion catches everyone. Tomorrow's another work day, another alarm clock, another 60 hours of labour stretching ahead. In your comfortable bed right now, you might stay up reading, watching shows, scrolling through social media. In 1921, sleep was the only affordable luxury. You return to the tiny bedroom, now freezing as the coal stove in the main room burns down for the night. Undressing quickly, you slide between cold sheets, pull the thin blankets up, and wait for your body heat to create a small pocket of warmth. Your brother's already in bed, reading a dog-eared pulp magazine by the weak light of a single bulb. Electricity in tenements was still relatively new, unreliable, expensive, but magical compared to gaslighting. Night, he says, switching off the light. In the darkness, you hear the symphony of tenement life. Babies crying, couples arguing, someone playing a violin badly, water pipes knocking, the L train rumbling 2 blocks away. These sounds are the lullaby of urban 1921. As you drift towards sleep, you wonder what tomorrow will bring. The same, probably. The relentless routine of survival. But also, maybe not, because the 1920s were just beginning their roar, and change was coming faster than anyone could imagine. Through the window, snow continues to fall on a New York transformed from just a decade ago. Horse-drawn wagons share streets with automobiles now. Telephones connect businesses. Movies flicker silently in palatial theatres. Women's hemlines creep scandalously upward. And somewhere in Brooklyn, a 6-year-old named Miriam listens to her immigrant parents dream of a better future for her. In 40 years, she'll be your grandmother, telling you stories of the hardships that seem impossible from the comfort of your modern life. You're falling asleep now, body aching from work, mind already calculating tomorrow's survival. But there's also a current of excitement, because it's 1921 and America is changing by the minute. Who knows what might be possible by decade's end? Now let's shift our view. While tenement dwellers in New York fought for survival inch by inch, a different America stretched across the vast countryside. It's 1923 now, and we're waking up on a farm in Iowa about 100 miles west of Des Moines. The first thing you notice is the silence. No neighbours arguing through thin walls, no streetcars clanging, no factory whistles. Just the distant crow of a rooster and the soft lowing of cows needing to be milked. You're in a wooden farmhouse that your grandfather built with his own hands after claiming this land under the Homestead Act decades ago. You're lying on a feather mattress instead of cotton and springs. The feathers came from your own geese, plucked, washed and stuffed by your mother and sisters last fall. The sheets are rough cotton but clean, line-dried in yesterday's sunshine. The quilt covering you was made by your grandmother, each square telling a family story in fabric. It's barely 5 a.m, but farm life doesn't care about clocks. Your body knows the rhythm without an alarm. Cows need milking at sunrise no matter what. The wooden floor is cold against your bare feet, but you're used to it. The house is heated by a single wood stove downstairs, meaning upstairs bedrooms stay cold enough in winter to see your breath. "You up, John," your father calls from downstairs. He's been awake for 30 minutes already, stoking the kitchen stove for your mother, who's mixing biscuit dough by the light of a kerosene lamp. "Coming, Pa," you answer, pulling on denim overalls over your long underwear. No shower this morning, or any morning. The farmhouse has no indoor plumbing. There's an outhouse 50 yards behind the kitchen, and a pump at the kitchen sink that brings up cold water from the well. For washing, you splash your face and hands with water from the ceramic basin on your dresser, water that froze a thin skin of ice overnight. Breakfast on a 1923 farm is no quick affair. You need serious calories for the work ahead. Your mother has already cooked a skillet of salt pork, its fat used to season the cast iron pan now full of scrambled eggs from your own chickens. Biscuits bake in the oven. Coffee boils in an enamel pot strong enough to stand a spoon in. "Today's the day," your father says, pouring coffee for himself. His hands are permanently tanned from years in the fields, with calluses thick as leather. Jenkins is bringing it around noon. Your heart skips. Today's the day your family joins the revolution that's transforming America. automobile ownership. After years of saving, your father's buying a Model T Ford from the dealer in town. You've never owned a car before. Few farm families have, but that's changing fast. Think it'll make it up the hill to the Petersons? Your mother asks, setting a plate of eggs before you. She's worried about the expense, the practicality. 20 years of horse transportation doesn't shift overnight. Henry Ford didn't become the richest man in America by making things that don't work, your father answers, but there's worry behind his confidence. The Model T costs $290, a fortune for a family that might see actual cash only a few times a year after harvest. Farmers in the 1920s operated largely outside the cash economy most of the time. You produced what you ate, you bartered eggs for sugar at the general store, traded labor with neighbors during harvest, repaired what broke, made what you needed. Actual dollars were rare and precious. After breakfast, you head to the barn with your father and younger brother. The daily chores wait for no one, car delivery or not. The barn smells of hay, manure, and the sweet breath of cows. 6 dairy cows need milking, the horses need feeding, the pigs need slop. Your hands move automatically, squeezing rhythmically as warm milk hisses into the metal bucket. "Pa, can I drive it first?" your brother asks, fork deep in soiled straw. Your father laughs. "Nobody's driving but me till I figure it out. That thing cost more than the South Field. I spent hours researching early car ownership, and the learning curve was brutal. No driver's education, no licensing requirements in most rural areas. Just a complicated machine, some basic instructions, and a lot of trial and error. The manual for a 1923 Model T included helpful tips like, to stop the car, first pull the gas lever back to neutral, then apply the brake. Do not become frightened and jump out. The morning passes in the rhythm of chores as old as farming itself. Milk the cows, separate cream, feed livestock, gather eggs, repair fences, check crops. The work of survival never ends, but there's a strange comfort in its predictability. By 11, you've changed into your town clothes. Not fancy, but clean overalls and a collar shirt without manure stains. Your mother's put on her good dress, the blue one saved for church and special occasions. Even your father's combed his hair and put on a freshly ironed shirt. "Hear that?" your brother says, running in from the porch. "It's coming!" And then you hear it, the unmistakable put-put-put of a Model T engine labouring up the dirt road to your farm, the sound of the modern world arriving at your door. Your whole family spills onto the porch, watching as a shiny black automobile bounces over the ruts of your lane. Mr. Jenkins from the dealership grins behind the wheel, dust coating him from the 12-mile drive from town. "She's a beauty, ain't she?" he calls, bringing the vehicle to a jerky stop in your yard. Chickens scatter in panic at this noisy intruder, and she is beautiful. Gleaming black metal brass headlamps, a folding top for rain protection. The Model T isn't fancy by later standards. It's utilitarian, designed to handle the brutal rural roads with high clearance and a tough suspension. But to your family in 1923, it's nothing short of miraculous. "Can drive her anywhere," Mr. Jenkins says, patting the hood like a favourite horse. 15 horsepower, 20 miles per hour on good roads. 20 miles per hour. The math transforms your world instantly. The trip to town, 12 miles that takes half a day by horse and wagon, suddenly shrinks to maybe 40 minutes. The county seat, previously a full-day journey, becomes a morning trip. Mr. Jenkins pops the hood to show your father the engine. Now starting her takes some practice. Got the hand crank here in front. Choke here, timing advance here. Too much choke, she'll flood. Not enough, won't catch. Timing too advanced, she'll kick back and break your arm. Wait, what? Yeah, starting early cars was legitimately dangerous. The hand crank could snap back and break bones if the timing was wrong. Emergency rooms of the 1920s were full of what doctors called Ford fractures, broken arms, wrists and thumbs from car cranks kicking back. Your father nods seriously, absorbing every word. This is the most complicated piece of technology your family has ever owned. More complex than the cream separator, more expensive than anything but the farm itself. Now, driving her's simple enough, Jenkins continues. 3 pedals on the floor. Left is clutch, press down for low gear, release halfway for high gear. Middle is reverse, right is brake. Your father looks concerned. Middle is reverse, not the left, Jenkins laughs. Ford's got his own way of doing things, different from other makers. You'll get used to it. And that was actually true. Early cars had zero standardization. Pedal arrangements, shifting patterns, even which side of the road to drive on wasn't fully settled in all states yet. Learning to drive one car didn't necessarily prepare you for another. After more instructions, Jenkins has your father sit behind the wheel. Turn the key, set the gas lever here, set the spark advance here, now come around front and give her a crank. Your father follows directions, moves to the front, grips the crank and gives it a mighty swing. Nothing happens. Another swing. Nothing. Bit more choke, Jenkins suggests. Third try, the engine catches with a roar and a belch of smoke that sends your mother's chickens running for their lives. Your father rushes back to the driver's seat, where Jenkins walks him through the pedals again. Ready for a spin? Jenkins asks. Your father nods, face set in concentration. The car lurches forward with a jerk, stalls, starts again, jerks forward, picks up speed. Your father's face transforms from worry to wonder as the automobile begins moving smoothly around the farmyard. Want to take her on the road? Jenkins calls above the engine noise. Your father nods, and the Model T bounces down the lane toward the country road, your father gripping the wheel like it might fly away. You and your brother chase after on foot, whooping with excitement. From your porch, the car disappears around the bend, but you can hear the engine echoing across the cornfields. 10 minutes later, it reappears, your father now smiling broadly behind the wheel. The future has arrived at your farm and nothing will ever be the same. After Jenkins leaves, driven home by your father, who'll return with the car alone, his first solo drive, the family crowds around the Model T like it's a spacecraft. Your mother touches the leather seat cautiously. Imagine getting to town in under an hour, she says softly, and you can see her calculating all the ways this changes her life. The isolation of farm women was profound before cars. Visits to town might happen once a month at most, church on Sundays if weather permitted. Otherwise, the farm was your world. I can drive to the Peterson place in minutes, your father says, already planning. Borrow that new seed drill without losing a whole day to travel. Your brother crawls underneath, examining the axles and suspension. How fast do you think it really goes, Pa? We'll find out tomorrow, your father promises. First, I need to figure out how to drive the darn thing properly. And figure it out he does, though not without incident. That first month of car ownership brings new vocabulary into your family's life. Words like carburetor, distributor, and flat tire become regular topics at the dinner table. There's the memorable afternoon your father drives into the yard too fast and sideswipes the water trough, denting the fender. There's the Sunday your whole family dresses for church, piles into the car, and makes it exactly 2 miles before a tire blows out. Your father changes it in his good suit, sweating and swearing under his breath while your mother pretends not to hear. The new car dealer looks at the flat tire and goes, "Yup, that'll be $4. And your father's thinking, $4? That's 3 days' wages for a farmhand, because the ongoing costs of car ownership shocked many first-time buyers. It wasn't just the purchase price. It was tires, gasoline, oil, repairs, a whole new category of expenses for families who previously fed their transportation with hay they grew themselves. But there are glorious moments too. The first time your family drives to town for supplies and makes the round trip in a single morning instead of a full day. The Sunday you drive 20 miles to visit cousins you previously saw only at Christmas because of the travel difficulty. The night your mother goes into town for a women's club meeting and comes home after dark, something impossible in the horse and buggy days. The car changes everything. Suddenly your map expands. The farm is no longer an island in a sea of distance. Town becomes an easy destination, not a journey requiring planning. Neighbours 5 miles away become people you can visit on a whim. By summer, your father has mastered the Model T completely. You and your brother have learned to drive too, at least enough to move it around the farmyard or drive the short distance to the main road. Your mother still refuses to try, claiming she has no head for machinery, but you've seen her eyeing the wheel when she thinks no one's looking. The car enables new freedoms, but it also leads to new family negotiations. Who gets the car, when, and for what purpose? Your sister wants to drive to town for a motion picture show. Your brother wants to take it fishing at the creek. Your father needs it for farm business. The single vehicle becomes a shared resource requiring complex family diplomacy. "We need rules," your mother announces at dinner one night after 3 separate car usage disputes. Church on Sundays, market days for supplies, farm business first, social calls only when work's done. Farm business included things modern folks might not consider, like getting a sick animal to the vet, hauling cream to the dairy station before it's spoiled, or bringing home a new breeding animal. One farmer's diary I found mentioned driving 80 miles round trip to purchase a particular bull for his dairy herd, a journey that would have taken days before cars. The greatest transformation comes in autumn. Harvest time, always the most critical and stressful season, changes with automobile ownership. Parts break on the threshing machine. Your father drives to town and returns with replacements in 2 hours instead of losing a whole day. Need extra hands for harvesting. He drives to town and brings back day labourers. A bumper crop ready for market? Multiple trips become possible in a single day. The car also connects your family to the wider changes sweeping America. Driving to the county seat, you see more automobiles each visit. The dirt roads, designed for horses and wagons, are being graded more frequently to accommodate car traffic. There's talk of paving some major routes. Your father returns from town one day with news. They're putting in a filling station on Main Street. No more buying gasoline in cans from the general store. Gas stations, car dealerships, repair shops, whole new categories of business spring up to serve the automobile culture. Roads improve, bridges strengthen, the landscape itself transforms to accommodate this revolution on wheels. By Christmas 1923, your family's Model T seems as essential as the plough or the stove. When snow blankets the farm and your father puts the car up on blocks in the barn for the winter, early cars weren't great in snow and many rural families simply didn't use them during winter months. There's a sense of loss, of returning to an isolation you'd briefly escaped. The car sits idle through the deep winter months, but plans form around it. Your father pores over maps, plotting spring journeys previously unimaginable. Your mother talks of visiting her sister in the next county, a trip previously requiring overnight stays. Your older sister, home from normal school for the holidays, speaks of perhaps living in town and driving home weekends once she starts teaching. Mobility breeds possibility. The car shrinks distance and expands horizons simultaneously. For your family and millions like you, the automobile isn't just a convenience. It's freedom in steel and rubber form. On Christmas Eve, sitting by lamplight, rural electrification is still years away for most farms. Your grandfather tells tales of his youth, crossing half the country by covered wagon, establishing the homestead, the isolation of those early years. Took 3 days to get to town when I first settled here, he says, shaking his head at the changes he's witnessed. And you can do it before lunch. This compression of time and space is the real revolution of the 1920s. The world simultaneously grows larger in reach and smaller in effort. America's vast distances, once barriers to connection, begin to shrink beneath rubber tires. When spring finally softens the land, your father reverses the winterizing process, checking the Model T carefully before taking it down from blocks. The first drive of the new season feels like rebirth, the farm reconnecting to the wider world after months of winter isolation. By now, the novelty has worn off, but the wonder hasn't. Each time the engine rumbles to life, each mile that passes beneath the wheels represents a freedom previous generations could barely imagine. Your grandparents measured travel in days and weather conditions. You measure it in hours and gallons of gasoline. And as your family's Model T bounces down country roads, it joins a growing river of vehicles, transforming America mile by mile. By decade's end, the country will have more than 23 million registered automobiles, 1 for every 5 Americans. The nation itself is being rewired around this invention, its geography rewritten in routes accessible by car. The automobile doesn't just change how you travel, it changes where you go, who you see, what you do, what you buy, where you might live or work. It reshapes your relationship with time, distance, community, and possibility. And it's just one of the revolutions remaking America in the roaring decade of the 1920s. It's 1925 now, and we're in Millerville, a small town of about 2,500 souls, nestled between rolling hills in western Pennsylvania. Not a big city like New York, not isolated farmland like Iowa, but something in between, the quintessential American small town where modern life and traditional values collide in fascinating ways. You wake up in a modest 2-story home on Elm Street, just 3 blocks from Maine. Unlike the tenement apartment or the isolated farmhouse, this bedroom is yours alone, a luxury of middle-class life. The bed has a proper metal frame, a store-bought mattress, and a colourful quilt your mother ordered from the Sears catalogue. Morning light filters through cotton curtains as you stretch beneath warm blankets. Outside your window, you can hear birds chirping, the occasional automobile puttering past, and the distant whistle of the 7:15 train arriving at the station. The house smells of coffee and bacon. Unlike city dwellers crammed in tenements or farmers isolated on distant homesteads, your family represents the growing American middle class. Not wealthy, but comfortable. Your father works as the manager at the town's hardware store. Your mother, unusually for married women in 1925, keeps the books for the same business. Your bedroom contains treasures that mark you as a teenager in this transitional decade. A small collection of phonograph records stacked beside a hand-cranked Victrola player, movie magazine clippings of Clara Bow and Rudolph Valentino pinned to the wall. A crystal radio set you built yourself from a kit ordered through Popular Mechanics. You swing your legs over the side of the bed, feet hitting a proper rug instead of bare boards. The house has modern conveniences your city and country counterparts might envy. Indoor plumbing with a bathroom shared by the family, electric lights in most rooms, a telephone in the hallway downstairs. Not every house in town has these things yet, but they're spreading rapidly as America's prosperity grows. Sarah, breakfast, your mother calls from downstairs. You can hear the radio playing in the kitchen, a morning news program from Pittsburgh, the announcer's voice slightly tinny but clearly audible. The radio, not the automobile, sits at the heart of your family's modern life. I spent way too long researching early radio models for this. Did you know the first commercial radio station, KDKA in Pittsburgh, only started broadcasting in 1920? By 1925, America had over 500 stations, and radio was transforming from novelty to necessity. Downstairs, your family gathers around a proper dining table in a room dedicated just to eating. Another middle-class luxury. Your father sits with the newspaper propped against the sugar bowl. Your mother places a plate of eggs and bacon before you, and your younger brother fiddles with the radio dial, trying to improve reception. "Don't touch that," your father says without looking up from his paper. "I want to hear the market report." The radio on the sideboard is the pride of your household, a new Atwater Kent model with 5 tubes and a proper wooden cabinet. No more headphones or crystal sets. This is a genuine piece of furniture that delivers entertainment directly into your home. It cost nearly $80, 2 weeks of your father's salary, but he considers it an investment, not a luxury. "There's a new Harold Lloyd picture at the Rialto tonight," your brother says, passing you the toast rack. "Can we go?" Movies, the other great mass media revolution, have already transformed from novelty to regular entertainment. Millerville has 2 movie theatres, the older Bijou and the newer, fancier Rialto, with actual upholstered seats and electric fans for summer cooling. "Test scores first," your mother answers, but her tone suggests permission is likely. Unlike earlier generations, your parents view commercial entertainment as normal, even beneficial. The motion picture industry has worked hard to shed its slightly disreputable early image, promoting films as educational and wholesome family entertainment. Your father lowers his paper. "Says here Coolidge is speaking on the radio tonight. National hookup." He says this with genuine wonder. The president's voice coming directly into your living room. The miracle hasn't grown stale yet. So for context, President Coolidge was nicknamed Silent Cal because he was so reserved. But even this quiet president embraced radio immediately. Like most politicians, he recognized its power to bypass newspapers and speak directly to voters. Radio made national politics immediate and personal in ways print never could. After breakfast, you head downtown with your brother to run errands before school. Main Street bustles with morning activity. Mr. Peterson unlocking his pharmacy, Mrs. Winters sweeping the sidewalk in front of her millinery shop, the mailman delivering packages to the general store. Unlike the anonymous city or the isolated farm, small-town life means being known. "Morning, Sarah," calls Mr. Peterson. "Tell your mother her headache powder came in." 3 people greet you by name before you reach the corner. This interconnectedness defines small-town existence, comforting or stifling, depending on your perspective. You pass the Rialto Theatre, where the marquee indeed advertises Harold Lloyd in The Freshman. A colourful poster shows the bespectacled comedian hanging from a clock face. Movie marketing is sophisticated already, with nationwide advertising campaigns, fan magazines, and merchandise. The movie star system is in full flower, creating the first modern celebrities known as intimately as family members, despite never being met in person. "Think Clara Bow will ever come to Millerville?" your brother asks, staring at another poster showing the famous It Girl in a revealing costume. "Dream on," you laugh. Small towns might get the same movies as big cities, but actual movie stars exist in another universe. At the newsstand, you spend your allowance on the latest issue of Photoplay, a movie magazine promising exclusive interviews with the stars. Inside are glossy photos of the famous faces you and millions of other Americans collectively adore: Chaplin, Fairbanks, Pickford, Swanson. Their hairstyles will be copied, their clothing imitated, their romances analysed by people who've never been to Hollywood and never will go. The theatre manager passes by, tips his hat. Coming tonight? Lloyd's a scream in this one. Hope to, Mr. Daniels, you answer, if homework allows. He winks. Special display in the lobby. Actual football from the movie. Studio sent it as promotion. This national marketing for local consumption represents the new media landscape. Products, promotions and publicity flow from centres of production to the smallest towns, creating shared cultural touchstones. A joke told in a Harold Lloyd film will be repeated in schoolyards from Maine to California. Americans increasingly laugh at the same things, cry at the same stories, worry about the same news. School occupies the middle of your day, a consolidated high school serving Millerville and surrounding farms. Unlike your parents' one-room schoolhouse education, yours features specialised teachers, a science laboratory, even a small gymnasium. Education is changing too, becoming more standardised across America as mass media and improved transportation connect previously isolated systems. But it's after school that the real centre of teenage social life in 1925 emerges. Miller's drugstore, with its soda fountain, booths, and most importantly, its Victrola player. Miller's is where Millerville's youth gather to socialise in ways their parents never experienced. 2 cherry phosphates, your friend Helen orders at the counter. The soda jerk, a college boy home for the summer, nods knowingly. Heard the new Armstrong record? He asks, gesturing to the stack of records beside the Victrola. Hot stuff. The store has a commercial arrangement with Victor Records. They sell records, but also play them as promotion. For the price of a soda, teens can listen to the latest jazz and dance music, much to the concern of some parents who view jazz as dangerously sensual and modern. My dad says jazz is causing moral decay, Helen sighs, rolling her eyes. Put it on. The music that fills the drugstore would shock earlier generations with its syncopated rhythms and improvisational style, but to you and your friends, it's simply the soundtrack of youth. Louis Armstrong's trumpet soars above the scratchy recording, creating a sound unlike anything your parents grew up hearing. Teenage culture in the 1920s was becoming distinct for the first time, shaped by commercial entertainment rather than traditional community values. Parents worried while teenagers embraced new music, new dances, new fashions spread by mass media. Did you hear last night's Collier's Hour? Asks Edward, sliding into your booth uninvited. They had that detective story writer. What's his name? Dashiell Hammett, supplies Helen, who devours detective stories. Radio created shared national experiences impossible in previous eras. The next day after a popular program, Americans everywhere discussed the same episodes, quoted the same lines, laughed at the same jokes. Regional isolation began dissolving in a sea of standardized entertainment. My folks got a new radiola, Edward boasts. 6 tubes. Dad let me stay up for the fight broadcast from New York. Heard Dempsey get knocked out in real time. Sports broadcasting nationalised athletics, turning local teams into national obsessions and athletes into celebrities. Before radio, you might read about a boxing match the next day. Now you could hear it as it happened, the announcer's excitement making you feel present at events occurring hundreds of miles away. The soda jerk changes the record, putting on a Paul Whiteman dance tune. Anyone going to the dance at the Grange Saturday? He asks. Wouldn't miss it, Helen answers. Sarah's teaching me the Charleston. The boy from the pharmacy looks at you and goes, "You know the Charleston? For real?" Because even in small towns, the dance crazes that swept urban areas eventually arrived, sometimes months after they'd already peaked in New York or Chicago, but they arrived nonetheless, carried by movies, magazines, phonograph records, and travelers. You demonstrate a few Charleston steps beside the booth, exaggerating the swinging arms and twisted knees that scandalize parents and delight teens. The dance's energetic abandon perfectly captures the spirit of the decade, modern, rebellious, carefree. As afternoon stretches toward evening, you head home for dinner, stopping by the hardware store to walk home with your father. The store itself is another symbol of changing times. Traditional tools still occupy prominent space, but new sections cater to automobile owners, radio enthusiasts, and home modernization. "Look what just came in," your father says proudly, showing you a display of electric toasters. Future of home appliances right there. Consumer culture was exploding in the 1920s as electrification spread and mass production made previously luxury items affordable to the middle class. Advertising in magazines, newspapers, and radio created desire for products people hadn't known they needed. The modern consumer was being born. Dinner at home follows middle-class rituals unchanged for decades. Proper place settings, serving dishes passed around the table, conversation about the day's events. But tonight's normalcy is interrupted by the radio in the living room. "Hurry up," your father urges, checking his pocket watch. "President speaking in 15 minutes. National broadcast." After dishes are cleared, your family settles in the living room, father in his armchair directly facing the radio, mother in her rocker with mending, you and your brother on the sofa. The radio glows warmly as tubes heat up, emitting a soft hum before voices emerge. This is Graham McNamee speaking to you from Washington, D.C., where President Coolidge will address the nation on the state of the economy. Your father shushes everyone, though no one's speaking. The room falls silent as the president's distinctive New England accent fills your Pennsylvania living room. The moment feels profound, the nation's leader speaking simultaneously to millions of citizens in their private homes. Imagine going from a world where you might never hear the president speak unless he visited your town to one where his voice regularly entered your living room. The psychological impact was enormous. Political leadership became both more intimate and more polished as radio required new skills from public figures. After the speech, your family discusses the president's points about the booming economy. Your father, a Republican like most small business managers, approves of Coolidge's pro-business stance. Your mother, with more progressive leanings, has reservations. What matters isn't their disagreement, but that they both heard exactly the same speech at exactly the same time as millions of other Americans. A shared national moment impossible before radio. "Can we go to the movies now?" your brother asks as the post-speech analysis drones on. Your father checks his watch. 8 o'clock showing, be home by 10. The walk to the Rialto takes you down Main Street, transformed by evening. Shop windows glow with electric lights. Cars line the curb outside the hotel where travelling salesmen stay. The ice cream parlour bustles with couples and families enjoying an evening treat. The movie theatre marquee shines like a beacon, bulbs outlining The Freshman in electric glory. Outside, a crowd gathers. Farm families in town for the evening, factory workers still in work clothes, high school students giggling in groups, young couples using the darkened theatre for modest courtship. Inside, the lobby dazzles with gilt paint, patterned carpet, and a refreshment stand selling candy and popcorn. Movie theatres were designed as palaces of escape, their ornate architecture offering ordinary people a taste of luxury for the price of admission. 25 cents for adults, 15 for children. The football from the film sits in a glass case surrounded by promotional stills showing Harold Lloyd in various comic predicaments. A cardboard cutout of the star grins manically as patrons pose beside it for fun. 2, please, you tell the ticket seller, sliding coins across the counter. Your weekly allowance disappears, but the expense seems worthwhile for 2 hours of entertainment more elaborate than anything previous generations could imagine. The theatre interior impresses with red velvet curtains covering the screen, painted ceiling murals depicting classical scenes, and even small electric lights lining the aisles. No modern multiplex can match the opulent movie palaces of the 1920s, designed to transport ordinary people into worlds of fantasy before the film even began. As the lights dim, an organist begins playing at the theatre's prized Wurlitzer. Unlike metropolitan movie palaces with full orchestras, small-town theatres made do with a single musician. Still, the organ's rich tones fill the space, setting the mood for entertainment. First comes a newsreel showing world events. The Prince of Wales touring Africa, floods in Mississippi, a fashion show in Paris. For many in the audience, especially from outlying farms, these newsreels provide their only visual connection to world events. Before television, this was video journalism, powerfully immediate compared to newspaper accounts. Next, a cartoon featuring Felix the cat bounces across the screen, eliciting laughs from children and adults alike. Animation was already sophisticated by 1925, with established characters and consistent styles that audiences recognized and anticipated. Finally, the main feature begins. Silent, of course. The jazz singer with synchronized sound is still 2 years away. Title cards provide dialogue and narration, but the storytelling is primarily visual, relying on exaggerated expressions and physical comedy that requires no translation. The audience reacts as one, laughing, gasping, occasionally applauding particularly impressive stunts. This collective experience represents another way mass media united Americans. Millions would see this exact film, react to the same moments, discuss the same scenes afterward. You lose yourself in the story, worries temporarily forgotten in the flickering images. This escapism is precisely what made movies so popular during economic hardship or social change. For the price of admission, anyone could step into different lives, different worlds. Afterward, walking home through quiet streets, you and your brother quote favourite scenes and imitate Lloyd's pratfalls. The shared experience creates immediate connection, common reference points in an increasingly standardised national culture. At home, your parents are listening to a dance orchestra programme on the radio, the music softly filling the house. Your mother looks up from her book. Good picture? Hilarious, your brother answers, launching into a detailed description of the football game scene. You head upstairs to your room, mind still full of movie images. Before bed, you tune your crystal radio set with headphones, carefully adjusting the wire on the crystal to catch distant stations. Unlike the family's console radio downstairs, this private listening device lets you explore the airwaves independently. Past your bedtime, headphones on, you listen to jazz from Pittsburgh, a hotel orchestra from Cleveland, fragments of voices from Chicago fading in and out with atmospheric conditions. The radio collapses distance in the darkness, bringing the wider world to your small-town bedroom. Lying in bed, you consider how different your life is from your parents' adolescence just 20 years earlier. They grew up in relative isolation, their entertainment locally produced, their horizons limited by physical distance. You inhabit a world where national media creates shared experiences across thousands of miles, where movie stars and radio personalities feel like familiar friends, where cultural trends spread coast to coast in weeks instead of years, or not at all. Your room contains the evidence of this transformation. Movie magazines, phonograph records, radio equipment, each represents threads connecting you to a wider America, weaving previously separate communities into a more uniform national culture. The voices on your radio fade as stations sign off for the night. This is KDKA Pittsburgh signing off until 6 a.m. Good night and God bless America. In the silence that follows, you drift towards sleep, your imagination full of images from movies, your head still nodding to remembered jazz rhythms. Tomorrow will bring more local experiences, school, chores, face-to-face conversations with friends and neighbours. But increasingly, these local experiences exist within a framework of national media that shapes expectations, creates shared references, and connects even the smallest towns to American culture at large. And as radio signals cross your sleeping town, carrying music, news, and stories to thousands of other communities, America becomes more itself, diverse yet increasingly unified, traditional yet embracing modernity, physically dispersed yet culturally connected in ways no previous generation could have imagined. We've seen working-class struggles in New York, rural transformation in Iowa, and middle-class life in small-town Pennsylvania. But to understand the full spectrum of 1920s America, we need to step into another world entirely, the rarefied air of wealth during the decade that birthed the term, "the rich get richer." It's 1927 now, and you're waking up in a bedroom larger than some entire tenement apartments. Sunlight filters through silk curtains onto a bed that cost more than a Model T Ford. You're in Lake Forest, Illinois, one of America's wealthiest suburbs, situated on Lake Michigan just north of Chicago. This isn't just wealth, it's American aristocracy. Your eyes open to a room designed by a prominent New York decorator. Hand-painted Chinese wallpaper covers walls hung with original oil paintings. A Persian carpet cushions your feet when you slide from the bed. The sheets are Egyptian cotton, changed daily by housemaids you rarely see. The room is warm despite the winter chill outside. Central heating, thermostatically controlled, keeps the entire 24-room mansion at a perfect 72 degrees. Through large windows, you can see snow dusting the formal gardens that stretch toward the lake. The grounds cover 12 acres, maintained by a staff of 6 gardeners year-round. Unlike the tenement dweller, the farmer, or the small-town teen, your morning doesn't begin with immediate chores or work preparation. Instead, a discreet knock at the door signals your lady's maid, Louise, arriving with a breakfast tray. "Good morning, Miss Catherine," she says, setting the silver tray on a bedside table. "Mrs. Harrington requests your presence at 11 for the charity committee meeting." You nod sleepily, reaching for the delicate porcelain cup filled with perfectly brewed coffee. Louise moves efficiently around the room, opening curtains wider, laying out clothes for the day, gathering yesterday's discarded silk stockings for laundering. "The blue Chanel or the green Patou for luncheon?" she asks, holding up 2 dresses that each cost more than 6 months' salary for most Americans. "The blue, I think," you answer. "Is father at breakfast?" Mr. Harrington left for Chicago on the 7:30 train, Louise informs you. "He mentioned a board meeting at the bank. I spent hours researching how the ultra-wealthy lived in the 1920s. Think real-life Great Gatsby stuff. The income gap was staggering. The top 1% owned about 40% of all wealth, and they weren't shy about showing it." Louise draws your bath in a bathroom that would astound most Americans. Marble floors, heated from below, a sunken tub large enough for 2, gold-plated fixtures, and a shower with multiple heads. Still a rarity even in wealthy homes. Indoor plumbing had been around for decades, but this level of bathroom luxury was unprecedented. As you soak in scented water, you contemplate your day, charity committee in the morning, luncheon with mother's friends, tennis lesson if weather permits, the family has private indoor courts, then dinner with potential suitors your parents have approved. At 20, you're already slightly behind the marriage curve for your social set. Meanwhile, 3 floors below in the servants' wing, another day has been underway for hours. The Harrington household employs 18 domestic staff: butler, housekeeper, cook, kitchen maids, housemaids, footman, chauffeur, ladies' maids, and miscellaneous others. They rose before dawn to prepare the house and family for another day of conspicuous leisure. In the vast kitchen, Mrs. Collins, the cook, directs 2 kitchen maids in dinner preparations that will take all day. The fish must be absolutely fresh, she insists to a delivery boy from Chicago's finest market. Mr. Harrington can tell the difference. The kitchen is industrial-sized but state-of-the-art with electric refrigeration, not just an icebox, multiple ovens, a dedicated pastry area, and specially designed storage for the family's extensive collection of serving pieces and china. Different sets of dishes for different meals and occasions mean the kitchen contains more plates than some department stores. James, the butler, confers with Mrs. Collins about wine selections for dinner. Mr. Harrington wants the 21 Bordeaux with the main course, he says. Despite prohibition being the law of the land, fine wine flows freely in wealthy households. The very rich were effectively exempt from liquor laws that criminalized average Americans. The Harrington family never even pretended to obey prohibition. Their wine cellar, hidden behind a false wall, a minimal concession to legality, contains vintages worth more than most Americans earn in years. When they entertain, champagne flows as though the 18th Amendment never passed. The florist called, Mrs. Mitchell, the housekeeper, tells James. The orchids for tonight's centerpiece are delayed. Shall I have them use roses instead? James looks pained. Mrs. Harrington specifically requested orchids to complement the new Limoges service. This level of detail in household management wasn't unusual for America's upper class. Every aspect of domestic life was curated, from fresh flowers daily to perfectly pressed linens to seasonally rotated art and furnishings. The butler checks his watch, a solid gold timepiece gifted by Mr. Harrington last Christmas. The silver still needs polishing for tonight. Have Thomas and William see to it immediately. While the household staff rush to prepare for an intimate dinner party, only 16 guests tonight, practically casual by Harrington standards, you've finished your bath. Louise helps you dress in layers typical for wealthy women. Silk undergarments, lightweight corset, fashion still demanded certain silhouettes. Silk stockings held by garters, slip, and finally the blue Chanel day dress. Your closet would stagger most Americans. Dozens of dresses, suits, coats, and specialized outfits for every conceivable activity from riding to tennis to yachting. The concept of appropriate dress reaches religious intensity among the wealthy. Wearing evening clothes before 6 or country clothes in town would cause more scandal than political radicalism. Mrs. Harrington purchased tickets for the Symphony Friday, Louise mentions while styling your hair. She asked me to remind you that the abbot's son will be joining your box. Matchmaking remains a primary maternal occupation even in 1927. Despite the decade's reputation for liberation, upper-class marriage still functions partially as business merger and social positioning. The Abbotts own railroads. Your father owns banks. The match makes financial sense. I read this wild account from a Society columnist who described a debutante ball where they released live birds painted gold as decoration, just set them loose inside a ballroom. The things wealth made seem reasonable were truly bizarre. Downstairs, you find your mother in the morning room, a sunny space overlooking winter gardens. Eleanor Harrington, at 45, remains a stunning woman, maintained by rigorous beauty regimens, regular spa visits, and the confident posture of someone who has never worried about money. "Catherine, darling," she greets you, barely looking up from correspondence she's reviewing. "The Blakely girl is engaged. Third this season. We really must focus on your prospects." Your mother writes with a gold fountain pen on personalised stationery. Her morning activity includes answering invitations, directing household matters, and managing her extensive social obligations. Though she doesn't work in any traditional sense, her role maintaining family status through social connections is taken extremely seriously. "The charity committee meets at 11, she continues. "We're finalising plans for the Children's Hospital benefit. I've committed us to purchasing 2 tables at $500 each." The irony of spending lavishly on charity events wasn't lost on everyone. One socialite supposedly said, "We spent $15,000 on a party to raise $10,000 for the poor, but the party was so lovely." A housemaid appears silently with fresh coffee. Your mother continues reviewing her social calendar without acknowledging the servant's presence. This invisibility of staff represents another aspect of wealthy life. Domestic workers exist in a parallel universe, physically present but socially non-existent unless needed. "The Morgans have invited us to Palm Beach next month," your mother says. "I've instructed Louise to begin packing your resort clothes. We'll take the private car on the 20th. The private car refers to the family's railroad car, attached to regular trains, but offering completely private accommodations. Commercial air travel barely exists in 1927, so wealthy families travel by private rail car, essentially mobile luxury apartments coupled to regular trains. Your father enters, having returned unexpectedly from Chicago. Howard Harrington made his first million before 30, multiplied it through banking, and now at 50 serves on numerous corporate boards while managing family investments. His tailored suit, handmade shoes, and perfectly trimmed mustache project success and authority. "Market's up again," he announces, accepting coffee from the hovering maid. "Those aircraft manufacturers I mentioned, stock jumped 12 points yesterday." The stock market dominates wealthy conversation in 1927. The unprecedented bull market seems unstoppable, creating paper millionaires daily. Investment tips exchange like currency at dinner parties and golf clubs. "Should we buy more?" your mother asks, revealing that even society women follow financial markets closely. "Already instructed Harrison to purchase another 1,000 shares, your father replies. "This boom has legs." Of course, with hindsight, we know the crash lurks just 2 years away, but in 1927, optimism borders on delusion among the investing class. The market can only go up. Prosperity will never end. America has entered a permanent plateau of prosperity, as many economists claimed. After breakfast, you join your mother in the library where the charity committee, 8 women from prominent Chicago families, gathers to plan a hospital benefit expected to raise $50,000. The meeting perfectly encapsulates upper-class women's lives, genuine charitable impulses, filtered through social competition and status display. "The Palmers have donated an automobile as the grand prize," announces Mrs. Winthrop, committee chair. "We must ensure ticket prices are high enough to maintain exclusivity." The women discuss dinner menus, orchestras, table arrangements, and decorations with the seriousness of military strategists. While they genuinely want to support the Children's Hospital, the event's success will be measured equally by its social prestige and press coverage. Catherine, Mrs. Winthrop addresses you. We'd like you to chair the junior committee. Get those eligible bachelors to open their wallets. This represents your growing social responsibility. Young people of your class must begin demonstrating philanthropic leadership. It's part of the unwritten curriculum of wealth. After the committee departs, you have a few hours before luncheon. Unlike most Americans, your time is largely discretionary. You spend it practicing piano on the Steinway Grand in the music room, one of many accomplishments expected of wealthy young women. Though the jazz age celebrates more liberated female behavior, traditional expectations still govern upper-class womanhood. The society lady at the piano goes, "Oh, I don't work. I merely oversee the staff, manage social engagements, run 3 charity boards, speak 3 languages, and can play Chopin from memory." Because wealthy women's labour was never called work, even when it was complex and demanding. At 1 o'clock, your mother's luncheon guests arrive. 6 women from prominent Chicago families. The dining room gleams with silver and crystal for what's considered an informal meal, though it would outshine most Americans' wedding dinners. Housemaids in black uniforms with white aprons serve course after course while remaining functionally invisible to the diners. Conversation touches on mutual friends, upcoming social events, European travel plans, and eventually current events. Even here, the new mass media makes its presence felt. "Did you hear President Coolidge on the radio last night?" asks Mrs. Forrester, whose husband owns a department store. Harold says his business policies are precisely what America needs. The Lindbergh flight is all anyone discusses in New York, contributes Mrs. Astor, recently returned from Manhattan. They're planning a ticker tape parade when he returns. Charles Lindbergh's solo flight across the Atlantic in May 1927 represents another media milestone, the first global celebrity created entirely through mass communication. His handsome face appears everywhere, from newspapers to magazine covers to movie newsreels. The flight itself lasted 33 hours, but the media sensation continues months later. "Catherine, didn't you meet the Lindbergh boy at the Wetmore party last year?" your mother asks, creating a social connection to the news sensation. "Briefly," you acknowledge, though the encounter was merely a passing introduction at a crowded event. Still, social capital comes from proximity to fame and prominence. After luncheon, you have your tennis lesson in the family's indoor court, followed by a massage from the personal masseuse who visits twice weekly. Physical fitness and beauty maintenance occupy significant time for wealthy women, though the purpose remains attractiveness rather than health. As evening approaches, Louise helps you prepare for dinner. This involves another bath, complete hair restyling, and changing into formal evening wear. A beaded lanvin gown imported from Paris, satin evening slippers, family jewellery from the safe. Mr. Abbott's son will be seated beside you, Louise mentions while fastening a pearl necklace worth more than her lifetime earnings. Mrs. Harrington suggested the emerald earrings as well. Downstairs, the transformation is complete. The dining room now glows with candelabra, fine china, and crystal. Footmen in formal livery stand ready behind each chair. James supervises with eagle-eyed attention to detail. Fresh flowers perfume the air. The setting could be a royal palace rather than a private home. Guests arrive in chauffeur-driven luxury automobiles, Packards, Cadillacs, Rolls-Royces. The women drip with jewels, the men wear impeccably tailored evening clothes. Air kisses exchange, cocktails circulate, prohibition remains an inconvenience rather than an obstacle, and conversation bubbles with practiced charm. Mr. Abbott's son, Robert, does indeed sit beside you at dinner, a Yale graduate with perfect manners and practiced conversation. His family's railroad fortune would combine nicely with your banking background. The matchmaking is obvious, but conducted with sufficient subtlety to maintain dignity. Do you enjoy the symphony, Miss Harrington? He inquires over soup served in antique Sèvres porcelain bowls. Particularly Debussy, you reply, with appropriate cultural knowledge, though I found the Stravinsky piece last season quite stimulating. The dinner conversation floats through safe topics: music, theatre, travel, mutual acquaintances. Politics rarely intrudes in mixed company, though most present share conservative Republican views aligned with their financial interests. Labour unrest, immigration concerns and prohibition enforcement affect their businesses but not their daily lives. Wine flows freely despite federal law, served from crystal decanters rather than original bottles, a minimal nod to illegality. The meal stretches to 7 courses, each more elaborate than the last, representing days of kitchen preparation for a 3-hour dining experience. After dinner, the men briefly separate for cigars and port while the women retire to the drawing room. This Victorian custom persists in upper-class households despite the decade's more relaxed social standards. When the groups rejoin, entertainment follows. A famous pianist has been engaged to play for the intimate gathering. By midnight, the party concludes. Chauffeurs return from their waiting positions to collect guests. You bid good night to Robert Abbott with appropriate restraint, though his invitation to join his family's box at the races next weekend suggests mutual interest. As the last guests depart, the household staff springs into action again. Despite the late hour, silver must be washed and counted, china returned to storage, linens laundered, floors cleaned. For the wealthy, the day ends with rest. For those who maintain their lifestyle, hours of work remain. In your room, Louise helps you undress, removing jewellery to the safe, hanging the beaded gown carefully, untangling your hair from diamond clips. The day's social performance complete, you can finally relax. Will there be anything else, Miss Catherine? Louise asks, folding your evening gloves. No thank you, Louise. Good night. Alone, finally, you slip between fresh sheets changed during dinner. Your windows offer a view of Lake Michigan, moonlight silvering the winter waves. In the distance, Chicago glows with electric light, the city that generates your family's fortune. Before sleep claims you, you consider your position, privileged beyond most Americans' imagination, insulated from hardship by wealth accumulated across generations, expected to maintain and expand that privilege through strategic marriage and social compliance. The freedom of the Jazz Age touches even gilded cages, but expectations remain. And as you drift towards sleep in your mansion bedroom, other Americans do the same in tenements, farmhouses, and small-town homes. The single nation contains these parallel worlds, connected increasingly by mass media, but separated by wealth disparities that the Roaring Twenties has only widened. Let's hit the road. It's 1928, and America is on the move like never before. While the wealthy enjoy their mansions and the middle class about 6,000 years ago in southern Mesopotamia, roughly 20 city-states emerged between 2 unpredictable rivers, facing floods, scorching heat reaching 120-degree Kelvin, and constant warfare. Life was brutal and unforgiving, but for these determined Sumerians, survival somehow continued in the shadow of heat, thirst, and enemies at the gates. Here's what life was really like in ancient Sumer. Hey, quick thing before we start. If you actually listen to these regularly, hit like or subscribe. I always wonder where everyone's at, so comment your city and what time it is. Weird to think some of you are having breakfast in London while I'm recording this at night here in the States. Alright, let's head back to around 3000 BC. Trust me, it's going to be quite a ride. But first, get comfortable. Seriously, adjust those pillows, pull up that blanket, because where we're going, you're going to want to be cozy, your eyes open. It's still dark, mostly. There's a thin line of grey light seeping through the gaps in the reed walls. Dawn's coming. Not that you need to see it to know. The heat's already building. Even at this hour, the air feels thick, heavy, like breathing through wet cloth. You're lying on a mat woven from reeds. Just reeds. That's it. No mattress, no padding, just dried plants arranged in a grid pattern that's left their imprint on your back. Every ridge, every knot, you can trace the pattern with your fingers without looking. You've been feeling it pressed into your skin for hours. The mat sits directly on the packed earth floor of your mud brick house. The floor's cool, or it was when you first lay down. By now your body heat's warmed the spot beneath you. In a few hours, when the sun's really up, this same floor will bake. The whole house will turn into an oven. Temperatures outside will climb past 110, sometimes 120, sometimes higher. But right now, in this brief window before dawn, it's almost bearable. Almost. Your throat's dry, really dry. That scratchy, sticky feeling where your tongue wants to peel away from the roof of your mouth. When did you last drink? Yesterday afternoon? The water ration from the communal well? Yeah, that was it. Water's complicated in Sumer. You're surrounded by it. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers are right there, but you can't just drink from them, not directly. The water needs to be carried, stored, sometimes boiled. The priests say the gods live in the water. The reality is simpler and grosser. Animals drink from those rivers. People wash in them. Bodies sometimes float downstream from the cities upriver. So you ration, you wait. You drink when the water's been properly collected and settled. Your stomach's doing that thing where it's not quite empty, but definitely not full either. Call it a 3 out of 10 on the hunger scale. Manageable, normal even. Yesterday you had barley porridge for breakfast. Basically barley grains boiled in water until they turned into mush. For the midday meal, a flatbread. 1. And onions. Lots of onions. Dinner was more barley, this time as a cake, with some beans mashed into it. Onions feature heavily in the Sumerian diet, like really heavily. If the smell doesn't hit you first thing in the morning, you're either sick or you've gone nose blind to it, which, let's be honest, you probably have. After a few years of onions with every meal, your nose just gives up trying to register it. Outside, you can hear the city waking up. Footsteps, voices, the scrape of tools against stone. Someone's already at the communal oven, baking the first batch of bread. You can smell it, that warm, yeasty scent cutting through the onion smell. It makes your stomach clench. Welcome to the land between two rivers. Welcome to Sumer, the world's first civilization. And yeah, you probably don't want to be here. Look, I know I said get comfortable in your bed, right? Well, that's because where you are right now, in this ancient Sumerian house, comfortable is not in the vocabulary. The Sumerian word for mattress doesn't exist. They've got words for reed mat, for leather sheet, for wool blanket, if you're rich. But mattress, the fluffy, cushioned thing you're lying on right now while listening to this? Nope. Not a thing. Your house is basically a box made of mud bricks, dried mud to be specific. The walls are about a foot thick, which helps with the heat during the day and the surprising cold at night. The roof? More mud brick, supported by wooden beams if you're lucky enough to have timber, or just more packed mud if you're not. There's a central courtyard. That's the heart of the house. It's open to the sky, which means light and air can come in, but it also means dust, heat, and during the brief rainy season, water. Everything in the house is built around that courtyard. Your sleeping room, the storage room, the kitchen area, they all open onto it. Most of the walls don't have windows, not real ones. Maybe some small openings near the ceiling to let hot air escape, but nothing you'd recognise as a window. Windows are a liability. They let in heat, dust, and more importantly, they let in people you don't want in your house. Thieves, animals, the occasional very determined rat. So it's dark in here. Even with dawn coming, it's dark. You sit up, slowly. Your back makes a series of small popping sounds as your spine realigns itself after a night on the reed mat. There's a specific ache between your shoulder blades that never really goes away. It's just there, part of life. Everyone has it. Even the rich people sleeping on their wooden bed frames with woven reed platforms and woolen padding have some version of it, though they'd never admit it. The air smells like dust and smoke and, yes, onions. There's also the underlying scent of the mud bricks themselves, that earthy clay smell that permeates everything. It's in your hair, your clothes, your skin. You could wash every day and it would still be there. Not that you wash every day. Water's too precious for that. In the corner, there's a clay jar. Water, your emergency supply. You're supposed to use it sparingly, but right now, with your throat feeling like sun-baked clay itself, sparingly seems negotiable. You reach for it. The clay is cool against your palms. You lift it, tilt it, and let a small amount of water pour into your mouth. Not enough to satisfy, just enough to coat your throat, to give your mouth something to work with. The water tastes like the jar, like minerals and clay and faintly metallic. Better than nothing, way better than nothing. You set the jar down and stand. Your joints protest. Your feet find the packed earth floor, still cool, and you take a moment to just exist, to breathe, to prepare yourself for what's coming. Because here's the thing about being a Sumerian in 3000 BC. Every single day is about survival. Not dramatic, movie-style survival with dinosaurs and explosions, just the grinding, relentless work of staying alive, finding water, finding food, avoiding disease, avoiding injury, avoiding the wrath of gods who seem perpetually angry about something. And today, like every day, starts with work. The sun's not even up yet, and you've got to get moving, because in Sumer, if you're not working, you're not eating, and if you're not eating, well, let's not think about that. You pull on your clothes. If you're a man, it's a knee-length skirt made from wool or linen. If you're a woman, it's a longer dress, also wool or linen. Both are basically rectangles of fabric wrapped around your body and held in place with a belt or pin. No zippers, no buttons, just cloth and determination. The fabric's scratchy, rough. It's been washed in the river and beaten against rocks and dried in the sun so many times that it's more texture than textile, but it's what you have. It keeps the sun off your skin during the day and provides a thin layer of warmth during the surprisingly cold nights. You step out into the courtyard. The sky's lighter now, that pre-dawn grey that's not quite day but definitely not night anymore. The stars are fading. Above you the sky's huge, endless, without any light pollution, without any buildings taller than 2 stories. The sky in ancient Sumer is vast in a way that's hard to describe. It's like someone removed the ceiling of the world. Other people are emerging from their sleeping rooms. Your family, if you have one. Maybe your parents, your siblings, your spouse, your kids. Sumerian households are multi-generational. Everyone lives together. Everyone works together. Privacy is a concept that won't be invented for another few thousand years. Someone's already started a fire in the courtyard's cooking area. Smoke rises in a thin column. The fire's small. Fuel is precious, but it's enough to heat water for barley porridge. Again, because that's breakfast. That's always breakfast. Unless you're wealthy. Then you might have honey to sweeten it, maybe dates, maybe cheese. But wealth is relative in Sumer. Even the wealthy eat barley. They just eat it with more stuff mixed in. You head toward the fire, but before you get there, you hear it. The sound that dominates Sumerian life. The gong. It's coming from the centre of the city, from the area near the ziggurat, that massive stepped pyramid that you can see from anywhere in the city. The temple tower. The house of the gods. The gong is the signal. The call to work. And in Sumer, work means the irrigation canals. Oh boy. Let me explain something about Sumerian cities. They exist because of one thing: water management. That's it. That's the whole civilization in a nutshell. Take away the canals, the dikes, the reservoirs, and Sumer disappears. The cities crumble. Everyone dies or moves away. It's that simple. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers flood every year. Unlike the Nile in Egypt, which floods predictably and gently, these rivers flood violently and randomly. One year, no flood. The next year, massive flooding that destroys everything. The rivers also change course sometimes, just deciding to flow in a completely different direction and leaving former cities stranded in the desert. So Sumerians built canals, lots of them, a network of waterways that crisscross the landscape, bringing water from the rivers to the fields, to the city, to the storage reservoirs. It's an engineering marvel. It's also a maintenance nightmare. Every single day, people need to work on the canals, clearing silt, reinforcing banks, checking for leaks, building new sections. It's back-breaking, relentless labour that never, ever ends. If you slack off, if you take a day off, the system starts to fail. And if the system fails, everyone dies. Not theoretically, actually dies. No water means no crops. No crops means no food. No food means starvation. So when the gong sounds, you go. You grab a tool, maybe a wooden shovel, maybe a basket for carrying dirt, maybe a hoe for breaking up dried mud, and you head toward the city gates. Other people are doing the same, hundreds of people, maybe thousands, depending on the size of your city. The streets of Sumer are narrow, maybe 6 feet wide. They're not paved, they're just packed earth, dusty in the dry season, muddy in the brief wet season. The houses press in on both sides, their mud brick walls creating a maze of passages that all eventually lead to the main thoroughfares. You pass a shrine. There's one on almost every corner, just a small alcove in a wall with a clay figurine of a god or goddess. Someone's already left an offering there, a piece of bread, a small cup of beer. The gods are always hungry, always thirsty. They need to be fed constantly or they get angry. And when gods get angry, bad things happen. Disease, floods, drought, war, all of it is because the gods are displeased. So you make offerings, you pray, you perform rituals, you do everything the priests tell you to do, and sometimes it works. Sometimes the gods are appeased and life continues. Sometimes it doesn't work and people die. That's just how it is. You reach the city gate. It's massive, thick wooden doors reinforced with bronze bands. They're open now, letting workers stream out toward the fields and canals. Guards stand on either side, armed with spears and copper axes. They're there to protect the city from raiders, from rival cities, from anyone who might want to steal Sumer's most valuable resources: grain, livestock, and people. Slavery exists in Sumer. It's common. When one city conquers another, the losers become slaves. They're brought back to work the fields, build the buildings, serve in the households of the wealthy. It's brutal. It's also just how things are done. You pass through the gate. The landscape beyond the city walls is a grid of irrigation canals and fields, green crops, barley, wheat, flax growing in neat rows, date palms providing shade and fruit, vegetable gardens full of onions, garlic, leeks, cucumbers, lettuce, all of it made possible by water drawn from the rivers through the canal system. And there they are. The canals, wide channels cut through the earth, some filled with flowing water, others partially dry and needing maintenance. This is where you'll spend your morning. This is where everyone spends their mornings. The overseer is already there, the guy in charge of organising the work crews. He's shouting instructions, pointing at different sections of canal, assigning people to different tasks. He reports to the Ensi, the political and religious leader of the city. The Ensi reports to the gods. Everyone reports to someone. That's the hierarchy. That's civilization. You're assigned to a crew working on a section of canal that's been filling up with silt. The water's flowing, but slowly, too slowly. If it gets any slower, the fields beyond won't get enough water. The crops will suffer. People will go hungry, so you dig. The sun's up now, fully up. The heat's building fast. Within an hour, it's already uncomfortable. Within 2 hours, it's genuinely brutal. The sun beats down on your back, on your head, on every exposed bit of skin. You're sweating. Everyone's sweating. The air shimmers with heat. You scoop silt from the canal bottom, load it into a basket, carry it to the embankment, dump it, return for more. Scoop, load, carry, dump, return. Again and again. The silt's heavy, wet. It clings to your shovel, your hands, your feet. Your back aches, your shoulders scream. Your hands develop blisters on top of the calluses you already have. This is life in Sumer. This is civilization. The world's first cities, built on the backs of thousands of people doing this exact same work, day after day, year after year, generation after generation. Around you, other people are doing the same thing. Men, women, even older children. Everyone works, everyone contributes. There's no concept of retirement or weekends or vacation time. You work until you physically can't anymore, and then you either have family to take care of you or you die. Fun times. The overseer walks along the embankment, watching, making sure everyone's working at the right pace, making sure no one's slacking. Sometimes he shouts encouragement, sometimes he shouts threats. The line between motivation and intimidation is thin in Sumer. Someone starts singing. A work song. It's rhythmic, meant to keep everyone moving in sync, meant to make the work slightly less unbearable. Others join in. The melody's simple, repetitive. The lyrics are about the gods, about water, about the harvest, about hoping this year is better than last year. Hoping is big in Sumer. You keep digging, the sun keeps climbing, the heat keeps building, your water ration ran out an hour ago, your throat's dry again, your lips are cracking, the sweat's evaporating as fast as your body produces it, leaving salt crystals on your skin. Not like your comfy bed right now, right? Not like your climate-controlled room with the glass of water on your nightstand. Not like your full stomach and your soft pillow and your complete lack of need to dig a canal before breakfast. You're welcome for the perspective. By the time the morning work shift ends, signalled by another gong from the city, you've moved several tons of silt. Your entire body hurts. You're dehydrated, exhausted, and covered head to toe in mud, but the canal's flowing better. The water's reaching the fields. The crops will survive another day, and so will you. You trudge back to the city with the rest of the workers. The sun's at its peak now. The heat's peaked too. It's easily over 110 degrees, maybe 115, maybe 120. In this climate, in this time before weather stations and thermometers, you measure heat by how it feels. And right now, it feels like walking into an oven. The city walls loom ahead. Even in their shadow, it's hot. The mud bricks absorb heat during the day and radiate it back out. The whole city bakes. The streets shimmer with heat waves. Dogs lie in whatever shade they can find, panting. Even the rats move slowly. You make your way through the maze of streets back to your house. The smell of cooking fires mingles with the ever-present scent of onions, smoke, and humanity. Thousands of people living in close proximity. No sewage system beyond what you carry out to dump in designated areas. No running water beyond what you carry in. No garbage collection beyond what you handle yourself. The smells are intense, genuinely intense. If someone from the modern world were dropped into ancient Sumer, the smell would probably be the first thing that hit them. Not the heat, not the sight of the ziggurat, but the smell. Human waste, animal waste, rotting food, smoke, sweat, and, yes, onions. Lots and lots of onions. You reach your house. The courtyard feels like an oven. The air's thick and still. You head to the storage area where the communal water jug is kept. There's a ladle. You're allowed one ladle of water. You take it. It's warm from sitting in the heat, but it's wet. That's all that matters. The water hits your stomach and your body just absorbs it, gone in seconds. You want more. You're allowed more. You take another ladle. This time you force yourself to drink it slowly, to let it actually satisfy your thirst rather than just disappearing into the void of dehydration. Someone's preparing the midday meal. More barley, this time as flatbread. The dough's been mixed with water and salt, maybe a bit of fat if there's any available, and then slapped onto the side of the hot clay oven to bake. It comes out crispy and slightly charred. You eat it with onions, obviously. There's also beer. Yes, beer. The Sumerians invented beer. It's not like modern beer, no hops, so it's sweet rather than bitter, thick, almost porridge-like because they don't filter it. You drink it through a straw from a large ceramic jar to avoid the chunks. It's nutritious, filling and mildly alcoholic. It's also safer than water because the brewing process kills bacteria. So yeah, beer for lunch, beer for dinner, beer most of the time. The goddess Ninkasi, whose name literally means lady who fills the mouth, is one of the more popular deities. She's the goddess of beer and brewing. People pray to her regularly, make offerings to her. Beer is serious business in Sumer. You sit in the shade of the courtyard, eat your bread, drink your beer through a reed straw, and try to cool down. It's not really working. The shade helps a bit, but the air's still oven hot. Your clothes are soaked with sweat, your skin's sticky with salt and dust. This is the midday rest period. Work in the canals has stopped because it's simply too hot. The wealthy retreat to the inner rooms of their larger houses. The priests perform their rituals inside the cool stone of the ziggurat. Everyone else just tries to survive the heat. Some people sleep. Others do light work, repairing tools, weaving baskets, mending clothes. Children play quiet games in the shade. Life slows down, waiting for the worst of the heat to pass. You lean back against the mud brick wall of your house, the bricks hot against your back, but somehow being still, being in shade, being fed and hydrated, relatively speaking, makes it bearable. Your eyes close, the sounds of the city fade into background noise. For a moment, just a moment, you're not thinking about survival, about canals, about gods, about tomorrow's work. You're just existing, and honestly, in ancient Sumer, that's about as good as it gets. The rest period ends when the heat drops from hell on earth to merely oppressive. You get up, time for afternoon work, different from the morning canal labour, but work nonetheless, because again, if you're not working, you're not eating. That's just math. Today, you're assigned to the temple complex. Yeah, the ziggurat. That massive stepped pyramid dominating the city skyline. You can see it from literally anywhere. It's designed that way. The whole point is to be impossible to miss. Let me paint you a picture of what this thing looks like. Imagine a wedding cake. Now make it huge, like football field huge at the base. Stack smaller and smaller platforms on top of each other, maybe 5 or 6 levels total. Cover the whole thing in mud brick. Paint some levels white, some black, some red. Put a temple at the very top. Painted blue to look like the sky. Add stairs running up the sides. Now place it in the dead centre of the city so everyone has to look at it every single day. That's a ziggurat. The one in your city rises about 150 feet into the air. The base covers maybe 3 acres. It took decades to build, thousands of workers, millions of mud bricks. It's basically a mountain that humans decided to just make, because the gods lived on mountains far away. And if you can't go to the mountain, you build your own mountain and hope the gods appreciate the effort. Spoiler alert, the gods always need more convincing. You approach the base of the ziggurat. There's a huge courtyard surrounding it, easily the size of 10 modern city blocks. This is where city life happens: markets, gatherings, public announcements, religious festivals, executions, normal civic stuff. Right now, the courtyard's busy. There's an artist painting a mural on one of the temple's outer walls. A kid races past, probably late for school. Yes, school. The Sumerians invented formal education. Lucky them. A woman's milking a goat near one of the smaller shrines. Someone's weaving a basket from reeds. Life continues in the shadow of the god's house. But here's where it gets interesting. The ziggurat isn't just a religious building, it's the centre of everything. Economics, politics, law, healthcare, education. The priests who run the temple complex basically run the entire city. They control the grain stores, they organise the irrigation work, they settle disputes, they diagnose illnesses, they keep records of everything, and I mean everything. The Sumerians are obsessed with writing stuff down. They invented writing specifically to keep track of temple accounts. Who donated what grain? Who owes temple taxes? Who got how much beer ration? It's all recorded on clay tablets in cuneiform script. Thousands and thousands of tablets. Some of these ancient accountants were tracking every single sheep, every bag of barley, every jar of oil. It's basically ancient middle management, but with more gods and fewer staplers. The priests are everywhere in the courtyard. You can spot them by their clothes, fancier than yours. Cleaner, definitely cleaner, made from better fabric. They wear these distinctive fringed garments, kind of like shawls. Some have their heads shaved, some have elaborate hairstyles. All of them have this air of authority because they speak for the gods. And the gods? They're not exactly chill. Okay, let's talk about the Sumerian pantheon. Strap in, because this is wild. The Sumerians have over 3,000 gods and goddesses. 3,000. There are gods for everything. God of the sky, god of water, god of air, goddess of love, goddess of war. Sometimes these are the same goddess because apparently love and war go together. God of beer, goddess of grain, god of that specific canal over there, goddess of this particular tree. It's excessive. The big ones, the major league gods, are An, Enlil, Enki, and Inanna. An is the sky god. Top of the hierarchy, though he doesn't do much these days. Think of him as the retired CEO who still has his name on the building. Enlil is the real power, god of air and storms. He's based in Nippur, which is like the religious capital of Sumer. When Enlil gets angry, bad things happen. Floods, droughts, locusts, your crops dying, your city getting destroyed, fun guy at parties. Enki is the water god. He's actually pretty cool, relatively speaking. God of wisdom and magic. He's the one who warned that one guy about the great flood and told him to build a boat. Sound familiar? Yeah, that story predates the Noah version by about 1,000 years. The Sumerians did it first. Inanna is the goddess of love, sex, fertility, and war, because nothing says romance like a good battle. She's based in Uruk and is basically the most dramatic deity in the pantheon. The myths about her are wild. She goes to the underworld, gets killed, comes back to life, sends her husband to hell as a substitute. It's a whole thing. Then there are the lesser gods, hundreds of them. Each city has its own patron deity. Each household has its own protective spirits. You're supposed to pray to all of them, make offerings to all of them, keep all of them happy all of the time, which is, let's be honest, exhausting and impossible. But you try anyway, because the alternative is divine punishment, and that's not theoretical. When bad things happen, and bad things happen constantly, it's because you or someone in your city angered a god. Drought, you didn't sacrifice enough sheep. Flood, someone committed a sin, and the gods are collectively punishing everyone. Disease, the gods sent demons to afflict you. Everything is the gods' fault. Or rather, everything is your fault for not pleasing the gods properly. It's a system that keeps the priests very, very powerful. You reach your assigned work area near the base of the ziggurat. Your job today is helping to transport offerings from the courtyard up to the temple at the top. People bring offerings all day, every day. Food, drink, woven cloth, tools, sometimes animals. All of it goes to the gods, which really means it goes to the priests, who consume it on behalf of the gods because, the gods can't actually eat solid food. Convenient. The stairs up the ziggurat are steep, really steep. Each platform has its own staircase connecting to the next level. You're carrying a large basket of bread. Someone behind you is carrying a jar of beer. Someone else has a live chicken, which is not happy about being carried up a giant pyramid in a 110-degree heat. Can't say I blame the chicken. Each level of the ziggurat serves a different function. The lower levels have storage rooms, administrative offices, and smaller shrines. The middle levels have priests' quarters and ritual preparation areas. The top level, the one you're climbing toward, has the main temple. Only the high priest or priestess gets to go into that top temple. Everyone else stops at the platform just below. That's where you'll leave the offerings, where the priests will collect them, perform the necessary rituals, and then take them inside to feed the gods. You reach the top platform. The view is stunning. From up here you can see the entire city spread out below, the grid of streets, the houses packed together, the city walls forming a protective circle. Beyond the walls, the green fields and the network of irrigation canals cutting through the brown landscape. Beyond that, the rivers winding their way south toward the Persian Gulf. You can also see other cities in the distance, just smudges on the horizon, but they're there. Other Sumerian city-states, Kish to the north, Uruk to the south, Lagash to the east, all of them built on the same model. Ziggurat in the centre, city around it, farmland beyond, canals everywhere, all of them competing for the same resources, the same water, the same land, the same trade routes, all of them sometimes at war with each other, but we'll get to that later. You set down the basket of bread in the designated area and head back down, up and down, up and down. Each trip you're carrying something different. Dates, figs, barley grain, oil, wine, if someone wealthy donated it. The temple accumulates massive quantities of stuff. They have to. They employ hundreds of people. Priests, administrators, scribes, craftsmen, servants, guards. All of them need to be fed. The temple is essentially a corporation, a very powerful, very wealthy corporation that also happens to commune with divine entities. On one of your trips down, you pass a group of student scribes sitting in the shade of the second platform. They're practicing their cuneiform on clay tablets. A teacher walks among them, correcting their work, occasionally smacking someone on the back of the head when they mess up. Sumerian education is not gentle. These kids, all boys from elite families, spend years learning to read and write. They memorize thousands of cuneiform signs. They practice writing on cheap clay tablets that can be smoothed over and reused. They learn mathematics, astronomy, religious texts, legal codes. It's brutal. There's this ancient text, basically a student's complaint letter, where he lists all the times he got beaten in a single day, for being late, for talking in class, for getting his writing wrong, for his handwriting being messy. The kid then asks his father to invite the headmaster over for dinner, gives the teacher gifts, and suddenly his writing is praised, and he's told he'll be a great scribe one day. First recorded case of apple polishing in human history. The teacher's walking past and he glances at you. Not in a friendly way, more like the way you'd glance at a piece of furniture. You're not in his social class, you're labour, he's educated elite. The distance between you and him is enormous. Sumer has a clear social hierarchy. At the top, the Ensi and his family. The Ensi is the political and religious leader. His name literally means the one who divides the temple land, because all land belongs to the gods and the Ensi manages it on their behalf. Just below the Ensi are the priests. They're the educated class. They can read and write. They understand astronomy and mathematics. They know the rituals. They interpret omens. They're also the doctors, by the way. When you get sick, you go to a priest. He'll diagnose you by examining your symptoms, maybe by reading signs from animal entrails, and then prescribe either herbal remedies or magical incantations, or both, usually both. Below the priests are the merchants and craftsmen, people with specialised skills, potters, metalworkers, weavers, jewellers. They're not wealthy, but they're comfortable. They own their workshops. They can afford decent houses. Then there are the farmers and labourers. That's you. That's most people. You work the land, maintain the canals, build the buildings, do the physical labour that keeps the city running. You get paid in rations, beer, bread, barley, sometimes dates or fish, just enough to survive. At the bottom are the slaves, people captured in war, criminals, or people who sold themselves into slavery to pay off debts. They have no rights. They're property. They work the worst jobs for no pay beyond basic food and shelter. And everyone, every single person in this hierarchy is terrified of the gods. You finish your transport work as the afternoon starts cooling. Well, cooling. It's still over 100 degrees, but at least it's not 120. Progress. The evening prayer ceremony is starting. A gong sounds from the top of the ziggurat. People start gathering in the courtyard. This happens every evening. A public ritual where the high priest offers the day's final sacrifices to the gods, prays for the city's prosperity, and updates everyone on any important news. You join the crowd, hundreds of people pressing into the courtyard. The air smells like humanity, sweat and smoke and onions, always the onions. The high priest appears on the top platform of the ziggurat. He's wearing his ceremonial robes, elaborate things with gold thread and precious stones. He raises his arms, the crowd quiets. He chants something in what might be an older form of Sumerian. You don't understand all the words, but you get the general idea. He's asking Enlil to bless the city, to provide water for the crops, to protect against enemies, to keep disease away, to make the harvest good, the usual requests. He sacrifices a lamb. Someone hands it to him. He performs the ritual, and the lamb becomes an offering to the gods. Its meat will be consumed by the priests, who will eat it on behalf of the gods, because that's how offerings work. Then he makes an announcement. The NC has declared that a new section of canal needs to be built. Work will begin next week. All able-bodied citizens will be required to participate. There will be extra beer rations. The crowd accepts this news with the enthusiasm of people who have no choice. More canal work. Great. But hey, extra beer. So there's that. The ceremony ends. People disperse. You head back towards your house through the maze of streets. The sun's setting now, painting the sky orange and red. The temperature's dropping fast. In a few hours, it'll actually be cold. Desert climates are like that. Extreme heat during the day, surprising cold at night. You pass a shrine to Inanna. Someone's left fresh flowers and a cup of beer. The flowers are already wilting in the heat. The beer's probably warm, but it's the thought that counts. The gods appreciate offerings, even sad ones, maybe especially sad ones, shows you're really trying. Near your house, there's a commotion. A small crowd has gathered. You push closer to see what's happening. There's a man on the ground, clearly injured. His leg is bent at a bad angle. Broken, probably. Someone's already sent for a priest-doctor. This is bad. Really bad. A broken leg in ancient Sumer is potentially a death sentence. If it heals wrong, you can't work. If you can't work, you can't eat. If infection sets in, which it often does, you die. The priest doctor arrives. He's carrying a bag of supplies. He examines the leg, makes some pronouncements about which god is responsible for the injury and why, then starts setting the bone. No anesthesia, no painkillers beyond maybe some beer. The man screams. Several people have to hold him down. The priest splints the leg with wooden sticks and cloth strips. He chants an incantation to drive away the demons causing the pain. He applies some kind of paste made from herbs and animal fat. Then he gives instructions to the man's family about care and feeding and prayer. The man might live. He might not. It's in the God's hands now, which is what the priest says. Everything is always in the God's hands. You continue home. Your family's preparing dinner. More barley, this time as a thick soup with lentils and onions. There's also fish, fresh fish from the river, grilled over the fire. This is actually pretty good by Sumerian standards. Protein is protein. You eat sitting in the courtyard. The stars are coming out. Without any artificial light, they're brilliant. The Milky Way is visible as a glowing band across the sky. The Sumerians have been studying these stars for generations. They've mapped constellations. They've tracked planetary movements. They've figured out how to predict eclipses. Not because they find it scientifically interesting, though they probably do, but because the stars are gods, or at least controlled by gods, and understanding their movements helps predict the gods' intentions. Everything comes back to the gods. After dinner, you sit and rest. Tomorrow will be another day of canal work, another day of heat and labour and survival. But right now, in this moment, with food in your stomach and your family around you and the cool night air finally providing relief from the day's heat, things are okay. Not good, just okay. And in ancient Sumer, okay is about as good as it gets. Morning comes again. Because of course it does. You're back on canal duty, but today's different. The overseer pulls you aside after a few hours of digging, says they need someone to help the city scribes. They're doing an inventory of grain supplies and need extra hands to move the clay tablets around. You're basically going to be a filing cabinet. But hey, it's indoor work. Anything to get out of the sun. The scribe school is attached to the temple complex, naturally. Everything important happens near the ziggurat. You head there through streets that are already baking. It's maybe 2 hours past dawn and the temperature's climbing fast. By noon, it'll be unbearable. By mid-afternoon, deadly, if you're not careful. Inside the scribe school, it's cooler. Not cool, but cooler. The thick mud brick walls keep some of the heat out. Small windows near the ceiling let in light without letting in too much sun. There's even a slight breeze moving through. The room is full of young men, hunched over clay tablets. Dozens of them, all writing. The sound is distinctive. Reed styluses pressing into wet clay, making little wet popping sounds. Scratch, press, pop, scratch, press, pop, over and over. A teacher walks among them, hands behind his back, watching. He stops behind one student, looks at his work, and smacks him on the shoulder. Not hard, but not gentle either. Your signs are sloppy. Do it again. The kid smooths out his clay tablet with a wet rag and starts over. Welcome to Sumerian education, where mistakes are corrected with physical violence and everyone just accepts this as normal. Let me tell you about cuneiform writing, because it's genuinely bonkers. It started simple. About 5,000 years ago, temple officials needed to keep track of stuff. How many sheep in the temple flock? How much grain in storage? Who owed what taxes? So they used small clay tokens. 1 token equals 1 sheep. 10 tokens equals 10 sheep. Easy. Then someone had a brilliant idea. Instead of storing thousands of physical tokens, why not just press the tokens into soft clay to make an impression? Now you've got a permanent record without needing to warehouse all the tokens. From there, it evolved. People started drawing little pictures directly into the clay. A sheep looked like a sheep. Bread looked like bread. A person looked like, well, a stick figure person. That worked fine for simple stuff, but how do you draw go, or love, or angry? You can't just draw an emotion. So the Sumerians got creative. A picture of a foot meant foot, sure, but it could also mean walk, run, stand, go, movement. The same symbol could mean different things depending on context. Then they made the real leap. The symbols started representing sounds instead of just things. In Sumerian, the word ti means both arrow and life, so the symbol for arrow could be used anywhere the sound ti appeared, regardless of what the actual word meant. Boom, phonetic writing system. This meant you could write anything. Full sentences with grammar, tone, emotion, stories, laws, shopping lists, angry letters to your lazy brother, poetry, medical prescriptions, literally anything that could be spoken could now be written. The script looks like little wedge-shaped marks pressed into clay. That's why we call it cuneiform, from the Latin cunus, meaning wedge. The scribes use a reed stylus, cut at an angle, and press it into wet clay tablets. Here's the thing though, there are about 2,000 different cuneiform signs. 2,000, and that's just a start. Over time it got simplified to only 600 or so commonly used signs, but still, 600 symbols you need to memorize. Each symbol can have multiple meanings depending on context. Some symbols represent things, some represent sounds, some represent both, some represent syllables, some